Guys, I'm so excited to be here with you guys talking about one of my favorite things, new student conferences. I just want to introduce everybody and kind of get to know everybody since we're not meeting for the first time, but we're sitting around talking for the first time. My name's Jarrett. I am the assistant director at Rotary Theater Complex. I've been there in the assistant director capacity for probably about 12 years now, but I've worked there since I was in high school. So I've been around for a lot of new student conferences. In fact, I remember as a child going to new student conferences when my mom was working them. So I've sat through new student conferences since like 1995, a lot of them. So that's a little about me and kind of where I'm coming from. But if we can just go around and introduce ourselves and kind of talk about why we're here talking about day one of new student conferences.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Shanna Filburn. I am the Senior Administrative Coordinator for Student Life. I served with New Student Family Programs as kind of a behind-the-scenes person for NSC. So if anyone ever called the office or sent an email, I was probably the person that answered that. And so I have all the backstage kind of knowledge of what happens in the office. But I'm also the mom of a college student who's a senior in college right now.
Excellent. But not here.
But not here.
Not
no,
here.
She doesn't go here. She plays softball, so she went to a little bit smaller school.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. But you've been through the process of
absolutely
as a parent,
of a conference, yes.
The uncertainty and all the questions and stuff like that has been something that you've been privy to.
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent.
My name is Courtney Ammerman. I'm a student here, but I was an Aggie orientation leader last summer. And I am now a orientation team leader this summer for NSCs.
Excellent. Courtney, what was it that got you interested in being an orientation leader?
I'll be really honest. My mom told me I needed to apply.
Hey, there you go.
So I did need a job over the summer. I've always had a job since I was 16 and got a car because I have adult bills to pay now.
There you go.
She thought it'd be great if I stayed in College Station because she was already paying my rent over the summer. So she said, this looks like something you would do really well in, and I think you should apply. And I kind of asked her if that meant she didn't want me home for the summer. But I would just, but I love it. So I wouldn't ever go back and change it.
Excellent.
I'm Eris G. I am a senior student here. In the past, so summer 2023, I was an orientation leader. Then last summer, I was an orientation team leader. And now I am the summer 2025 intern.
Oh, fantastic.
So a lot of NSCs for me. You're number 3.
You're moving through the ranks.
Oh, absolutely. They can't get rid of me, and I just love working there.
The energy is so good. There's
absolutely.
like excitement that I think we're able to, and we all obviously have very different roles when it comes to new student conferences, but, there's an energy there that just kind of gets me like excited. And I love the summer for it. That's, we host in Rotary Auditorium, I think, and somebody can confirm this, but I think 20, 25 conferences, day one portions that we host in Rotary Auditorium. But every one of them is exciting because it's that new energy that comes in every time. And you're like, this is it. This is where you're going to be, like, welcome. We talked a little bit about kind of how we got into this, but let's talk about like specifically, what are we all doing on a day one of new student conference? Like, what are our roles? What are we, when, we said 6 a.m. at Kyle Field, like, where does our day start and kind of what are we doing? And, Eris, I'll let you go first.
All right. Typically, so I know the schedule has changed, but at least in my previous experience, it's like 8 a.m. type of deal. They come in, like new students and their families, they come into the MSC in the Bethencourt Ballroom. They check in, they get their name tags for the day. They get little goodie bags that we provide them with, like their name tag holders. They go and check if they have any holds, make sure they clear them before day 2, and then pay for any extra guests that come along and just double check everything before they go on for their first day. It's just kind of an official, like, here's how we start the day before they go to a welcome session in Rotary Auditorium. And that's where the energy just starts to build, honestly. But that's the bright early, we check in, there's some lines, but we get through it, get some free things.
And Shanna, you're kind of you're the foundation of it all because, you're at the office, fixing all the problems, that aren't people checking in. So tell me about kind of what a day one looks like on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've gotten all the name tags created and ready to go for everybody, but we get there a little bit early because we know it's kind of hard to navigate Aggie Land if you're not from here. So we want to make sure that we're there to answer any questions about parking or where you need to go, if you're lost, how you get to where you need to be to get to the first day. And so we kind of start there, answer any of the emails from the day before, have the phone lines open ready to go so that we can kind of help you out to get where you need to be.
Excellent. Courtney, tell me what you're kept busy with on a day one of new student conferences.
So I would say as an orientation leader, we weren't too busy in the mornings. It was kind of just like setting up for morning check-in and stuff like that. But I'd say as soon as those doors opened, right around 8, like Eris was saying, it was just like students and families flooding in, all ready to get checked in and stuff. So that was really fun. But I had a lot of fun during check-in because I feel like that's where you got the most interaction with students and families. But then we kind of just send them to the welcome session. And then we would see them again at the student experience panel and then again at lunch. But I think those are flipped now in our schedule, which is a little bit different. But I'm kind of excited to see the students for the first time really at lunch and get to know them a little bit before we get into the student experience panel. So we can kind of answer some of their questions before we get there.
Absolutely. And I don't think I'd be wrong in saying, check-in is probably like the most hectic part,
Absolutely.
Yes.
A lot of families that are probably, stressed about, being where they need to be on time and not knowing exactly where they need to be. Shannon, tell me about sort of some of your challenges, not challenges, but some of your like stressors when you went through this with your child for day one, kind of some of the things you were concerned about and maybe how we can help mitigate those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're thinking through all of the things that you don't know. You may have forgotten. You're not sure what to do. And I think one of the things that I learned the most is to take a big, deep breath and just take the whole experience in. Because sometimes you can be so busy and so worried about making sure all the boxes are checked that you don't sit back and actually enjoy the experience, because this is you sending your child, your kid off to their first big girl experience or big boy experience, their big person that they're going to get to do on their own. So I think that's one of the really big parts. And then also one of the big challenges is to take that step back to let them lead the way. This is their opportunity to take charge and kind of do things. You're there to support them, and that's so important because they do still need you and still want you there. But like watching them sprout those wings and take off for the first time in that safe space is kind of cool.
So, talking about, check-in and that sort of, it's kind of, it ramps up real fast. What are some things that we can tell families to make sure that they bring with them to make their day go smoother? Is there anything, any secret tips and tricks that you found that really help out a student and family's experience on a check-in day for stuff they need to bring with them and have with them?
I would say being one of the people that has everything ready, like I had a folder full of everything. I recommend that because you check your holds before you come to your new student conference. And luckily for me, mine were cleared, but there's students that come in thinking all of their holds are cleared, and then all of a sudden they have like a TSI hold. And if you have like your scores printed and stuff like that and everything ready to go, it's super easy to take it over to the help desk and they can just help you clear it. Versus, not being prepared for that, not having everything ready, it makes things a lot more timely and kind of just slows down the process.
Gotcha.
And you have to have your holds cleared before you register on day 2. So
Gotcha. Perfect.
Well, they've got you through all the practicalities. So
Oh, yeah.
I will skip to what I feel like is the really important part, which is you need to bring something that's like a little light jacket
Yep.
or a little, maybe a raincoat, an umbrella, because it will be cold inside. It will
Absolutely.
be hot outside. And there's no way to regulate in between because this is Texas. And it will just randomly rain. And you do have to walk a little bit. So it's good to have that umbrella with you. And really kind of an important thing. So I'd say those two things are probably my biggest and most
Absolutely.
important.
Absolutely. And I think I have a 9-year-old, so I'm in a 9-year-old mode, not an 18-year-old, but I think like snacks and water.
Yes.
Because you may not know when you can, you may be in sessions for a long time and then go straight to another session. So I think having that, and then a battery block too, I think is a big one.
Oh,
Yeah, it is a long
absolutely.
day.
And comfortable shoes.
Oh, that's
I've
good.
seen some people wear some uncomfortable shoes, and I'm like walking from like Red Earth Theater to where lunch is, like say for parents to Bisa. I've seen some parents wearing high heels, and I'm like, good for you, but that does not look comfortable in this heat and also how you're walking. So I definitely recommend comfortable shoes, as this campus is massive, and you will be walking for both days.
So we'll wind, now that we have a good schedule in front of us, we'll wind it back. We get everybody checked in. We get them all in the auditorium. We do the welcome session. We have everybody together. What does the day look like for students and for families, from that welcome session on?
Okay, so for students and families, you'll be together in the welcome session. And shortly after that, you will have a session talking about financial matters. So most of your questions about financials and financial aid and stuff like that should be answered within that session. And then you'll kind of pick up, get into gear, and have a yell practice with our yell leaders. So I think that was always like one of our favorite
Yes.
times. We'd like sneak out of the theater and like peek in the auditorium and just watch the yell practice. But you can expect that. And then right after the yell practice, you'll split. And you will no longer be with your families. You'll be split from families and students. But freshmen will talk about living in Aggieland and kind of what to expect here as a freshman, as a first-year student, and things like that. With transfer students, it'll be transfer program. So we actually have transfer peer mentors here at Texas A&M, and they do put on their own little production, so to say, and kind of talk about everything that you can expect as a transfer student, as well as just any, what are those called? When as well as any resources
Gotcha.
that transfer students might need to use while they're here in Aggieland.
Perfect. And that's just another example of the intentionality too of, so the content, depending on if you're a freshman or a transfer student, is tailored, to freshmen coming in first year in college or transfer students coming in with, however much college under their belt.
Absolutely.
That's I love that.
I want to touch a little bit on the intentionality of splitting the students and the parents, because you get to start your day with your parents, which helps you get yourself eased in, get comfortable with your day. And then once you're in and you've got that day started, then you're going to split off. And it's really important to allow that split to happen, because the parents are going to get the information that they need. The students are going to have the opportunity to go and get the information they need and make those connections, which is really important.
Absolutely. No, I love that. That maximizing the time and how we get the information and making the connections is, I think, so important
Yes.
as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like after they split off, there is lunch. So students go to the Commons dining hall with the orientation leaders, just so they could have like conversations with student leaders on our campus. While parents go to Sabisa, just kind of keep the separation going so that students can still make those connections. And then parents, I love hearing that they're like, we get to experience college life like again, like we're in a dining hall, and they love it so much. But after lunch, there's going to be resources, like resource tables in the MSC, like in the main hallways. So it's going to be all of the resources and services we have here on campus. Then there's breakout sessions. There's 2 breakout sessions that you pick prior to your new student conference, or you can pick a day of. It is on your name tag. And then post that they will be separated again, students and their families. So there is a student experience panel that is run by the Aggie orientation leaders. So they get to submit questions to the OLs, just asking their experience on college life here. And that's where I've had the most fun, is people ask very interesting questions, but they're all around the same type of deal of like academics, how they experience transportation. And like they ask about like organizations like Fish Camp and how do flows work. And that's kind of where we get to use our own personal experiences to be a little bit more relatable and also just help them feel at ease with the fall semester. And then while that's happening, families are doing like their, they have their own session. I feel that is on like campus safety, because I know there are some parents that are worried about their student safety, and just also more like tailored questions to make them feel a little bit more comfortable sending their student here. And then I think in the end, they do come back together for one last like day 1 wrap up, kind of final send off, and then that is where like the day ends. So it is kind of a busy day, but there's so much information and so much to learn that kind of prepares them for the fall.
Let me ask you this. Any tips on, for the students on what to kind of prepare for to have the best and most like what's the word I'm looking for? Just the best experience possible and get the most information and get the most out of it. Anything that you would suggest for those students?
Yeah, so this is honestly one of my favorite questions because me coming into my NSC, I didn't have any friends going with me or anything like that. I was very like closed off. And so my biggest piece of advice is to just embrace it all. You're going to get here. People are going to start like whooping around you, saying howdy everywhere you go. You'll do yell practice and we'll do yells in the student experience panel and you'll think it's all so corny. But as soon as you start to embrace the whole process of just being an Aggie and being here in Aggie land, I think it makes it a lot more fun. And then another piece of advice would just be to come as prepared as possible. When I came, I was the student that had at least 5 schedules saved. And I still wasn't prepared because I went in today too. And there was apparently restrictions on certain teachers. And I didn't know that you could only take certain professors and stuff like that. But having those schedules lined up allowed me to be able to like sort through some things and not have to like rush right before registration. So definitely embracing everything that you're going to do here in Aggieland, talking to the people around you as much as possible, and just being prepared before you get here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of jumping on that is when I came in, my parents were like, we want you to be as independent as possible. Like, yes, we're here with you. Yes, we want to experience this together, but you're an adult now. So, like, one of my biggest things is, like, just feel more independent through this whole process. Like, I couldn't rely on my parents that much, even though I still call my mom every single day or multiple times a day. But like, she wanted me to be as independent as possible. She's like, I can't tell you what classes to pick. I cannot tell you what your schedule is supposed to look like. I cannot tell you where you're supposed to be living, where you're supposed to be eating every day. So you will do this all on your own. When they were told that they couldn't sit with me, like, during my day 2, they were like, yay, bye. So, and like, when we got separated during our NSCs, they were like, good, you get to meet new people, be a college student. You don't need us. So just feeling independent is a really great way to kind of ease into college life a little bit easier.
And they gave you that independence, but but they still got your back. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and Shanna, I mean, having gone through this, fairly recently, anything that that you wish you had done differently, or that you did and were really grateful that you did, or?
I would say for me, I think while I liked the idea that my daughter was able to do some things on her own, I probably helped a little too much in the beginning. And you've got to find that line of being able to help, but also letting them be more independent on their own as well. So my advice would be, sit back and listen. It is like drinking out of a fire hose, getting all this information. So listen, observe, take the notes, kind of sit back, let it happen so that they're experiencing it and they're learning from it. But when they forget things or they don't hear things, you have the information that you can share with them also. Really important, take in all those resources that they talk about. Those are the things that are going to just completely go over your student's head because they're taking in so much. But you get to garner all the resources and hold on to it so that when you hear something come up, you can go, oh, I actually heard about that in the family session. You can use this resource here, student assistant services or one of these other things. And so you're just going to be like the encyclopedia that they can turn to. Like Eris was saying, my daughter still calls me every day. I just got off the phone with her right before I came over here. And so it's one of those things where letting them become their own person, but being their fallback when they need you.
I love that. I love that. And we talked a lot about, being prepared and that being like sort of the best way to kind of go into your new student conferences. If students or families have any questions prior to their new student conference that they want clarification on, like, what's the best way for those questions to get asked and answered?
I can answer that.
Yeah.
So nsfp@tamu.edu is our email address. They can always send an email at any point, or they can give us a phone call. We're there every single day from 8 to 5. We have some students that answer the phone that are super knowledgeable, but we're here also.
Excellent.
Even during the new student conference, you've got a whole team of people that are behind the scenes in the office that are there to troubleshoot and help you answer any questions,
Absolutely.
as well as in person at our help desk.